We're here with another episode of Untangled. I'm Jen Frazier, CEO of Firefly Partners. We are a digital strategy and all things related to that agency. We've been working with nonprofits, progressive social justice organizations since 2008, which for many of you, you're like, gosh, I was in high school then. Whatever, it's fine. That means we know what we're doing, right? So we've created Untangled just to create a space where I have on lovely guests and we talk about things related to nonprofits, tech, messaging, outreach, engagement, the current climate we're in, challenges, all the things. I like to call it the mess behind the mission, and just sort of talk through what's top of mind for my guests and what we hope is sort of relevant and topical for you all, so we can hear about and talk through things that are thorny, hopefully come up with some solutions for folks, or just create a space where we can air and talk about things that we're all doing in this work, because it's hard work. Every single day doing this work is hard. So this week I'm joined by the fabulous Anna Hetzel, founder and worker owner of Strange Birds, and this is my favorite. Now, we just redid this moments ago. A messaging agency that works with companies who are ready to care loudly. And I would love to hear more about how you came up with that as a messaging team. I love to think about how messaging folks who really think about messaging come up with their own messaging themselves. So last two episodes talked a lot about AI, which is, a big topic these days, but I'm excited to pivot into something that's a little bit different, a little more personal, and really gets at a lot of the things that folks, I think, are struggling with in the space where we're doing really equity-centered work and struggling with exactly that, our messaging in what we have found ourselves to be, I like to call it our real life upside down world is happening. So, Anna, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I would love to know a little bit. You can tell folks, tell us a little bit about you, how you got into this work, and maybe a little bit about that messaging, how you came up with that sort of tagline for your company.
Well, but how we came up with the tagline, I would say that would be a whole other conversation. The long story short is messaging folks are great helping others and terrible helping themselves. The cobbler's kids
the shoemaker's children have no shoes. Is that the cobbler?
Yeah,
all that.
Cobbler's kids has no shoes. Exactly. Yeah. So that's a very long story, but we're just glad that we have it now.
Yes, it's a win.
Yes. So I'm Anna Hetzel. I'm based out of Columbus, Ohio. Strange Birds has been around for 8 years, going on 9, I think. I have to think about how old my niece is and then add a year.
I love that. I do that kind of stuff too.
Because me and numbers, dates, not my thing. Yeah, so 8 years, going on 9. I brought on Janelle Torkington, who's now a co-worker owner, to become a cooperative. That can be another conversation if we'd like it.
Love it.
Yeah, and our main thing is helping organizations and companies figure out how to talk about what they do in a way that's actually matters to the people they want to reach to, right? I think that the big thing when it comes to messaging is there's a lot of, we have to say these things.
Yeah.
When in reality, what you have to think about is, what do your people need to hear?
Yeah.
And it's a big shift, and it can mean letting go of some very precious ideas. But especially if, I'm assuming most of the people who are listening in work in nonprofits, your mission is why you exist, right? And so your mission, you have to make sure people are listening to you, not about what you feel like you need to say, but things that people really need to hear.
Yes. I think that's a really interesting distinction. I think also I've been noticing a trend of this when people finally get to the point where they sort of shed I have to say these things, or I have to put forth this persona or ideas of what needs to be your public self and or public, business persona and those types of things. And we're going to talk about this, the difference between the personal and the business, those distinctions. I see a lot of it, especially, I'm just going to say women identified folks that are just living in the space of feeling like they need to present a certain way to be successful, accepted, acknowledged, taken seriously, all these things. And then finally they're just like, hey, guess what? Here's who I am. my actual authentic self, not when I say I'm being authentic, but like I'm actually my authentic self, and are able to really speak from the heart, and you can just tell the difference.
Yeah. And I think if you take it out a step further to the organization, thinking about you have to sound this way, you have to do these things, this is what everyone else does. I think almost every business, except for the ones that, like, the rare few, most businesses do that at the beginning, right? They're like, well, this is what other people in my industry do. This is what other people that work with this mission do. So we must do this thing. And then there comes a moment in time where you have to make that decision of, how can we do we show up more? Do we show up as like, okay, but this is who we actually are now? We feel a lot more confident. We have like figured out how to swim in these waters, so let's swim, right?
Yeah.
Or it feels safe and I'm going to stay over here. There's not necessarily nothing wrong with that stance. However, the topic of this conversation is about being brave. And in this political climate, you can't be safe anymore.
No.
You can't. Especially if you have a mission, you can't be safe. There is no safe space.
None.
For mess. Well, let me rephrase that.
Right.
There's a lot of safe spaces out there. But in terms of messaging, what you're going back to what your community needs to hear, not what you feel like you need to say, you have to be what your community needs to hear. It is your job to make them feel heard. It is your job to make them feel supported. That is part of your mission.
Yeah.
And that requires you to step out of some quote unquote safer boundaries of messaging.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I wanted to sort of touch on too, is this idea of, especially right now in our crazy upside down madness, clown car app dysfunction, let's talk about bravery generally, and then sort of bravery in this moment. Were you talking about being brave in messaging before the current madness descended upon us? I'm assuming you were. And then let's talk about like how that has changed.
Yeah, in both instances. I'm gonna turn my fan off because it's distracting me now.
Okay, no problem.
In our pre-talk, I was like, can you hear my fan? It's really hot in my office. I think if we think about before, maybe we should define the current time period as the current presidential.
Yeah.
Yep. What's happening? That's the time period that we're like, in this time, we're talking about that. Now, if we look about before then, let's say 2020, the movement, right? The Black Lives Matter movement, all of the protests, there were a lot of companies that stepped up and were like, yeah, we believe in this is who we are. This is what we do. And they grabbed it and went with it, right?
Yeah.
Now we're seeing some of those companies take huge setbacks, Target for one. That to me is the definition of cowardly, right? If you take a stand, your job is to hold it.
Yes.
That is your job as a brand. Because the job as a brand, to make a brand successful, is you have to maintain trust. How you break trust is you go back on your word. So whatever you said before this, I'm going to break the curse barrier, before this shit show.
Yeah.
Whatever you said before this shit show, you have to keep saying it now.
Yeah.
You have to, because that's what people expect from you. That's what people need from you. And that's how you keep your mission alive.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I mean by being brave, sticking to it, keeping your line drawn in the stand and keep walking forward.
Yeah.
Even when it feels awful, it's terrifying.
Yeah. So let's talk about the terrifying. I did like the absolutely terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying every single day, every minute. Just think, as soon as I try really hard not to let myself get into the space of like, what could happen? What else? What's worse? Or what? I don't, because we know that it will get worse. So we just have to keep trying to expand our knowledge and understanding of what else could possibly go wrong. But when there are real consequences, and so that's the kind of conversations we're having on the board of the nonprofit that I'm on, that's small and local. And we do a lot of work with immigrants, refugees, women, LGBTQ, youth, folks who are pretty much in the crosshairs, like right now, 100%. But it's the mission, to your point. It is literally what we do. So we're like, how do we talk about what we do without literally like pinging literally all the words that are banned or whatever, which is obviously a whole other thing about what is that even about? But, you know, the trigger words or whatever we want to call them, how do we even try to describe what we do, talk about our mission, and not potentially, you know, show up on a radar, get unnecessarily harassed, targeted, blah, blah, blah. These things where everyone is really afraid. And one of our paramount, you know, needs is also creating safe spaces, back to safety. So it's like this weird, we find ourselves in a horrible paradox, which I know lots of folks are feeling this exact same crunch. Like, this is what we're gonna do. I want to talk about it, yet I want to create safe spaces. Yet I feel like, but just talking about it almost does exactly the opposite of that, though, and makes us unsafe. How do you got advice, thoughts? How do we balance this?
Yeah. So, one of the words, right? Equity. You say equity anywhere in your messaging, it's just automatic
Like,
slash
ding,
of
ding,
federal
ding,
funding,
ding.
right? So one of our clients, we had to go through all of their websites, their documentation, and scrub equity from everything. And it felt gross,
It
right?
does.
It felt awful. Like I wanted to take a shower. Like we were
Yeah, you're
like,
like,
oh, we don't want to do it. But like we kind of have to do it. But here's the thing. Sure, we took away the word equity, but that doesn't mean we're losing that mission,
yeah,
right? It's just we're not using that word. And because we took out equity, it allowed the program that used the word equity in the name. We had to change the name of the program, right?
wow,
We changed the name of the program. We shifted really fast, adapted, kept it going. And because it stayed alive, that organization was able to get funding that wasn't from federal dollars, right?
yeah,
So it's almost like this stay alive long enough to diversify your funding, to get out there more in the local community, right? And so it feels disgusting
yeah, it does.
and it's almost like you kind of have to accept it. Now from a messaging standpoint, it's a necessary act, but I also think maybe it could help nonprofits be better at messaging overall. And what I
Mm,
mean by this is words like equity, diversity, inclusion, sustainability, justice. These are all big words and they carry a lot of weight, but also every single person has their own definition of what those
yeah.
words mean, right? So this is your organization's opportunity
Oh,
to define what equity looks like for your specific mission. Because the more specific you get, the more that you're going to be able to connect with people who need to
yeah,
hear what you're saying,
right.
right? And the more clear your mission becomes.
I love that. In fact, I'm going to take that's really simple yet very impactful, purposeful. Like, oh yeah, right. All you have to do is actually describe what you're doing in maybe more words. Like there are lots of ways to describe, and you're right. Like these are not, I mean, they're buzzwords, they're important words, they're weighty. You're right. They mean a lot of things, but they also carry a lot of positive and negative connotations when you're talking to. But you're right, there's a lot packed into that of like, well, what do you mean by equity centered? What do you mean by blah blah blah? And you're just like, just say, we're trying to create safe spaces and opportunities for all folks to participate and explore the outdoors and find opportunities to be transformed personally, find power and love the outdoors where you might not have had access to it if you hadn't been able to come through one of our programs. Just, but you know, we're always like, it's kind of funny when you think about messaging too. I think it's this, I think the goal is always, or you feel like all this pressure to be like, say a lot more in fewer words. I'm like the most verbose person on the planet. And so I'm always like, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's like, say that in fewer words. I'm like, okay, I will try. But so I think that you're right. Sort of maybe in the, you know, striving for brevity and like getting things across because everybody knows the attention deficit situation that's happening
Mm.
with everybody. It's our goal to sort of get your point across in as few words as possible, as quickly as possible, because people can't pay attention. Sometimes you just have to say, slow it down and thoughtfully describe what you're doing. You don't have to write a novel, but you can describe it in more words. And that actually gets away from maybe the buzzwords that are on a hit list, helps you maybe fly under the radar just for like a second, but connect with folks because they really then feel and truly understand what it is that you're doing and how that can impact them. So I love
Yeah, and I would also maybe reframe it a little bit of not necessarily this pressure to write in fewer words,
yeah,
right? I think people are like, well, how can we say all of this in three words total? I think that's the wrong approach.
Right.
I think the right approach is how can we be the most clear? So
Yes.
there are things like filler words like that. If you have that in the word that, this is just my own personal bugbear. If you have the word that in like a header, your sentence is too
Yeah.
long.
Get rid
Take
of
it
it.
out. Figure out how to say it shorter, right? So there are ways that you can reduce the number of words, but it's really the goal is to be more clear.
Mm.
And even before this hellscape that we're in, unfortunately, the words diversity, equity, inclusion were unclear
Yeah.
because everybody has a different idea of what the end state would look like, right? So,
Oh,
what you have the opportunity to do is to describe the actions you're taking and the end state you're working toward, right?
mm.
That's also being brave because defining things means you're necessarily excluding somebody, right?
Oh,
How it which is hard because especially with nonprofits, you want to help everybody and you
yeah.
want everybody to be under this umbrella, but like we can't help everybody. We can help the people that our mission is particularly attuned to.
Yes.
And you just have to really tune your mission and understand, okay, these are our people and we're going to help them. And we have to take comfort in the fact that there are
Countless.
millions
Yes.
of nonprofits out there
Yep.
that are going to catch other folks.
Yes.
Like we don't have to do it all. And in fact, when we try to do it all, we lose our mission and
100%.
we lose our impact. And I
Yeah.
would also like to say, with the opportunity to be more specific, you have the opportunity to talk more about outcomes, right? So if you're trying to describe diversity or something, right? You can say, we translated our programs into 5 different languages,
Yeah.
right? Instead of saying, we can access more diverse populations, like our programs are translated in 5 different languages. Choose a language that works for you, right?
Yeah.
Very specific, very clear.
Yeah.
It also helps you talk about those outcomes and impact, like with much more intention rather than
Mhm.
here's the annual report.
Yeah.
How many people read it? Some top funders.
Right. 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 But yeah,
Um,
exactly. But I like that you have the specificity of going in and then, yeah, you say the outcomes. Like, here's kind of some specific examples that show how we actually are, striving towards more diverse audiences, participants and programs, et cetera. And then here's sort of, yeah, some outcomes that then speak to those specific, audiences. When you were touching on this, like the focus of organizations and sort of the struggle is real of being like, but how can we, you know, basically make these lines and say, sorry, you're not welcome, when exactly I think folks on the left tend to want to be really inclusive versus I think other folks on the other side are very like, you're not welcome. We're like, no, everyone, we want everyone to benefit. But you're 100% on target. And we talk about this also on the board about where we draw the line of like, what is our goal? What is our targeted folks that we want to actually do work for? And like, it's okay that we can't serve everyone. To your point, you then dilutes the whole process, mission, outcomes, everything becomes less
mhm.
um,
And
impactful. Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that you're not helping the folks that fall outside those parameters. You're not just like, huh, well, good luck. The beautiful thing about the vast network of nonprofits that we have in this country is that there is someone you can refer someone to.
Absolutely.
So if you're like looking at your mission and you're getting super focused on these are the folks that we help, and the moment it starts feeling like, oh, this feels tight and like, but what about?
Yeah.
There is an organization that helps those folks too. And start practicing referring, start practicing creating a network because
Yes.
it,
Well, the
we keep
network is what keeps us. Yeah.
we keep calling it like this hellscape, right? Like
Yeah.
we will survive together if
Yes.
we
Yeah.
collaborate together.
Yes.
And honestly, the more focused we are in our messaging and the more focused we are in our mission, the better we can help other people. Because
100%.
that means I know exactly what your organization does and who your organization helps. So when I come across someone that needs that, I can be like, go talk, go here. This is perfect
Yeah.
for you.
The,
Right?
the networks are key. Absolutely
Yeah.
key. And then the more you've made those connections and community, yeah, just those kind of referrals or those sorts of ways of collaborating are just natural and just become a part of your DNA and you don't even really think about it. And then you are sort of this that's how you create community. It's actually how we do survive these sorts of hellscapes, shit shows, all the things, because we know we've got this and we're bigger and better and we'll sustain past this spikes of insanity that come along to try and break us down. And I think the other thing is the resilience that comes from the community. So two things also, like, I think when you focus on a specific area, you have to know that by you and your team working in a very sort of, maybe you feel like it's a narrow space, you working to lift and support and empower and all the different things we're doing with different work, that brings the whole up, where you can't do it all. So yeah, again, you have to rely on the fact that other people are there, but just know that the work you're doing actually benefits the whole, and just keep that in mind. And obviously you have the network and the community where you go, great, I don't do that. And that's really hard, where you have to sort of find your lane and stay in it, because then you have to go, great, I'm gonna send you over here to other folks who that's their lane of awesomeness, and they're going to be able to help either with that service or with that particular part of the community that I don't serve or whatever, and just trust that's there, and then know that folks are collectively helping us all raise up and protect everybody at the same time.
We can't be out here jostling for position. In fact, we never could.
No.
And I think it's one of the reasons Strange Birds is becoming a co-op, because that, again, that's a whole other conversation, but jostling for position doesn't serve anybody's mission.
No.
Jostling for space, for funding, that doesn't necessarily quite fit your mission, but like you can retrofit it, like get super focused.
Yeah.
And again, it's hard, but if you look at any for-profit business, the ones that are really successful are the ones that are like, this is what we do.
Stay in the lane. Yeah.
Stay in your lane. And that doesn't mean you are not as radical. It doesn't mean that you're not as progressive. It doesn't mean that you're not going to change as much of the world. It does mean that you're going to be incredibly impactful on a corner of the world. And damn, do we need that right now? Like we need that.
We do. We do need the lane experts for sure. Exactly. And then we need to know who else carries what other lane, because you then go, if you start to think about expanding, that's when the exhaustion comes and the burnout comes. You're trying to do too much. If you stay, that actually also helps reduce that, like, exhaust. It feels right. That's what's happening in the shit show too, is this like wide onslaught, and all of us feeling the need to be like, oh my God, this is so comprehensive and so crazy. How can I possibly help? I'm just doing this one little thing. And that sometimes maybe feels like powerless, or you start to feel defeated or whatever. You have to be like, nope, I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to stay in my lane of awesomeness. I'm going to do what I do well. I'm going to talk about it as an unwavering way as possible. I'm going to stay true to the work. I'm going to talk about it, like you said, maybe in ways that are more specific, or, get at it a little bit closer. And maybe I try specifically right now in our current upside down world, avoiding maybe keywords that are tricky or difficult for some people right now, just to avoid the extra scrutiny. But you don't back away from the mission. You don't back away from the work, and you still come at it and you do it with your whole heart, and keep it in the lane, knowing that it serves its role in the greater good and lifting.
That's such a nice way to say, to some people it might be difficult. I'm like, oh, I'm reading between all the lines there. I feel you. And I think,
go ahead.
Something to think about as an organization, you can hold more weight than the individuals that you serve, right? So the individuals that you serve, almost everyone who is not in the 1% is drowning right now. And organizations have the power to be boats in a way that individuals cannot.
Yes.
So it is our job as organizations to stand up, to hold firm, to carry the load. That's our job. Agreed. So there's that question of all the conversations about overcompliance, compliance, malicious compliant. Be maliciously compliant.
Yeah.
That's all do the bare freaking minimum. Be maliciously compliant so that you can be a boat for people.
Totally. And then, like we said, we strap our boats together. And so we're out in the ocean, but we're not just one little individual boat, like bobbing along and feeling like the wave's going to come.
Yeah. Whole big flotilla. Let's go.
Yeah, you have to band together right now. It's like the most important act we can also do in this time and space is to like be extra purposeful and intentional in the outreach and the community and the partnerships. So we're like, oh no. So when you start to feel like as much as an individual then lashes onto the boats latch onto each other. And that's where we can like survive in the rough seas that we're in right now. Okay, awesome. Any last thoughts or notes you want to drop any last little bits of knowledge on everybody? I really appreciate the conversation. It's been really helpful for me. I'm going to bring some nuggets back to my organization and my company. And that's been super helpful for me. Last bits. I know, again, we've talked about this, climate's really hard. I bet you have some tips or ideas for folks.
Yeah, just a quick summary. Basically, the big points that we've talked about is it is gross to not use the words that we all know and need to use. However, it's your opportunity to be more clear and define what those words mean for you and your mission and your organization, which means that the folks that you are wanting to serve are going to better understand what you do and be more engaged in your organization. Volunteers, residents, community members, funders, right?
Yeah.
It can be seen as an opportunity. And in doing so, you can better build a coalition with other nonprofits and other organizations because you are hyper clear on who you are and what you do.
Love it.
So may I drop a resource?
You may. Tell us more.
So my business partner and co-worker owner, Janelle, she created this awesome guide for one of our clients of politically resilient messaging guide. And once she made it, we both looked at it and went, oh, this is awesome. So we scrubbed it, made it generic, and built out a whole guide. And I think that your lovely coworker, Shay, might be dropping a link in the chat.
Yes.
It's there. As we discover other things, we'll probably keep updating it because it's a live Notion page. So it's not a sticky, static PDF.
Oh, I love it.
If we come across new ideas, we will add it there. But use it as a tool. There are some resources of, instead of this phrase, which maybe you can't say anymore, here are some other ideas. There's tips and tricks. And I'm just going to say this again. You're not doing a disservice to your mission by not using specific words.
Okay.
You're not doing a disservice to your mission by not using specific words. In fact, you're keeping your mission alive in a time that is absolutely freaking terrifying. And it's your job to keep your mission alive because your community needs you now more than ever. And it feels gross saying it out loud because these words are important. Words carry a lot of power. I'm a words person. However, it's our job to hold the space and hold the boat.
Yeah. Hold the boat and then hold the boats together.
Yes.
I love it. I'm just going to say the URL out loud because it will be transcribed. We'll see how well the transcriber does it later, but it's strangebirds.kit.com/resilient, which should be in the chat below. We'll make sure that goes out with the recording later. I'm going to go take a look at it. Anna, thank you so much for all of your insights and just all the work that you do every single day. Appreciate you so much in the space. So it's next week, I'm going to be joined by my former Firefly, one of my besties, Maureen Wobbeoff. She's the founder consultant of Meet Maureen, and she's been helping nonprofits wrangle technology from all sizes. And we're going to talk about how to manage your nonprofit tech stack without losing your mind. So also, we're trying to stay sane. We're trying to use the right words. We're trying to lash our boats together in the crazy seas that we're in. And we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. We're going to, like you said, so like we can't use the words right now. I'm just going to throw that copy in right now. We can't use them right now. Words will come back. Words have power. Words have a way of circling back. So again, be safe in how you message right now, but do not lose sight of your mission. Like you said, it's far too critical, far too important, and far too many people are relying on nonprofits and the work that we all do more than ever. So thank you so much, Anna.
So fun
for tuning in, and we'll see you next week here at noon Eastern on Thursday.